All right, just for giggles here, I thought I'd go inside the car and do some of this stuff. Now, what you'll see here is all this light that's coming through. There's oh, I don't know, 100 little spots. They're all over the place. So that's gonna be my next little area to work on. Most of them, I'm just gonna have a look. I'm gonna grind them out and just fill them full of weld, and then just treat the underside because the metal's still fairly solid, so I'm not gonna worry about that too much. But over here, I have a couple of lingering issues. This is one of the seat belt areas here. I've cut a little piece for that I'm going to weld into place there, and then put a hole in it. And I've just formed this piece up here, so it needs a little bit of fine tuning, but that one there is going to end up in there to cover up all that business. And then, yeah. All right, this corner should look like it's easy enough. It's just a fairly flat corner on the surface. But what you don't notice here, the camera doesn't quite pick up, is it's actually like a 3 or 4-way compound curve. It bends down, it bends out. It takes like a flat piece of metal, lift one side up and the other side down. And that's kind of how it goes. And then add another curve to it as part of a circle. So it's actually a lot of messing around to get it in there. And I had to decide if I'm going to go behind the spot weld, which you can sort of see there at the red end of the cutters without the yellow on it. And I think that's the better way to go. It looks more original. I can drill the holes and then do the spot welds in there and then treat it from behind. So that's what I'm going to get to. I don't get to it in this episode. I get pretty close though. All right, this is my first crack at making this kind of a contoured piece of metal here. So my brake does 3/8 and 1/2 inch really well for the depth of the bend. These ones here are on a 1/4 inch, so I have to construct some spacers. And I'm going to just do a couple of experiments with some 22 gauge metal just to sort of get the feel for it, some sacrificial stuff, and then I'll once I get the piece right, I'll go back and make it out of 18, which is what this stuff is. Yeah, and it should fit in a little bit nicer. I'd like it to look completely seamless, but again, it's kind of a large area, and it's got a lot of detail in there, so this will be fairly challenging, I'm sure. So cutting this area out has turned out to be a real nuisance. It took me longer than it should have really. But in my defense, there is about 3 spot welded sections of metal that come together there. And they're blind spot welded. You can't see them from one side, but you can from the other and vice versa. So this is just an attempt at me using almost the right tools to do a job. It's like when you watch anybody who doesn't have the right tools sort of fumble through something. It would have been funny to sit back at 10 feet and watch this whole thing, but anyways, it came together. But it is a really complicated area to try and sort out. All right, with metal all cut, I'm just doing a little bit of forming here just to make sure it fits right in that gap. And again, I have to keep running back and forth to the workbench just to hammer in some of those marks where I have to put the contours into it. So that's the first one there I do is where it starts to bend. The second one is where it bends again. So it's actually a pretty good little bit of learning there I did just to figure out how to form those things and how to eyeball how much of a bend you need. So again, I think if you can hand form panels for a Volkswagen Beetle, you can pretty much hand form panels for anything. Okay, here's a better look at all those panels that come together. There's that is actually where the shock mount is up in the rear wheel well, and then we have where the two panels meet on the inside of the car there. And then if you look carefully, there's that gap. I want to slide the metal behind. It's the best way to go. So I still have to treat it yet, but getting up inside there, cleaning all that stuff out, drilling the holes, and properly returning the spot weld area to where it's supposed to be. And on the other piece that's actually right next to the gap where you can see through the car. Now for this seatbelt mount on the driver's side rear, I'm probably going to take all the seatbelt mounts in the back and weld in some thicker metal behind them and reinforce the areas. They're all not in great shape. I'm sure Bill's never going to have anybody in the back seat of this car, but just to make them actually a little more substantial. So this piece here is more just replace the metal that was already there with the rust holes and things in it. But my intention is to put larger pieces behind there, probably some 16 gauge steel, and weld them in, just to make it a little more substantial. That way, if you actually are in the back seat, the seat belts will actually do their job. Okay, so we got a couple of these holes welded in today. A couple down here, and a few down here. There they are. And a couple up here I've already ground down. Never got to this part today. That's just gonna be a special thing once I get this contour figured out, and then that'll be a whole separate game unto itself. Over here, I got this patch done, and this up here has been treated with rust preventer or rust neutralizer. I'm just gonna hit some weld-through primer on there, and then next time I'll take a shot at that. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to episode number 26. Things aren't exactly rolling along as fast as I'd like, but you know, that's all part of bodywork. So where I left it today was, it's all in primer. That one side over there where I still have to fill it in has all been neutralized and primed. So once I get a little more time, I'll get back on that. I still have probably, I don't know, 18 or 20 holes to do on the back. And I'm going to hand form that one piece of metal in the floor. What I did pick up, which I'm going to try out, I'm anxious to try it out, is Pour 15 patch. I read all the reviews on it. I got some good, some bad, but I think inside the car on this back deck where it's really wavy, not wavy, but it's all pitted a bit. They have said that it will fill that in, and it acts the same as like a body filler, but it's rust resistant, so any rust that's there or any rust that may show up again won't be an issue. So I'm gonna give it a try, and I'll do a small area just to see how it blends, and then we'll see. Maybe that'll be how I fix all those little dimples in the back deck of this thing. And there's a few other little areas at the front there where it'll be nice to be able to blend a few things too. So with that said, thanks for tuning in, guys, and I appreciate the comments I'm getting. It's always nice. Any feedback you got for me, just lay it on the line, and I'll respond to you as soon as I can. And yeah, we'll see you next time.